Hello, everyone. Good to see you, everyone. And it's great when your presentation talks for itself when the previous presenter gives most of it away. So, I'm Balaji Ramalingam. I'm part of AstraZeneca. I lead a service. And today I'll specifically be talking about scaling the unknown within services. And in this case, I'll talk about one of the services that's close to what I do, which is the process and analytics services that I offer for all different areas within AstraZeneca. Um, just to give you a bit of perspective, what does GBS mean? Global Business Services is an enterprise service, which is an enabling function across all of our different areas. Even though AstraZeneca is a pharmaceutical company, it still has a finance department, commercial department, R&D department, legal and compliance, HR, and so on and so forth. And we offer a couple of enterprise services. One of them is what I'll talk about today, which is process and analytics services. And when you talk about adopting not just technology, but just any transformation perspective, you start with strategy, like what you saw from the previous presentation as well. And our strategy has been, when we've thought about integrating AI into our services, has been the top left talks about when we are trying to simplify the process, we need to figure out what's the role of the human in the process first, and what is it basically working with the AI or being the boss of AI, and so on and so forth. And we do that based on a simple uh, uh, set of parameters. We try to estimate from the process what's the probability of harm if we just let it loose, as in like full autonomy and so on and so forth, and what's the severity of harm based on the outcomes. And if these are severe, then you have a human in the loop. As in, like, so you just make sure that whatever the outcomes are reviewed by humans, and then the outcome goes out to as part of the service. And if the outcomes are in the upper left quadrant or the bottom right quadrant, then you have a human over the loop. And if the severity and the probability of harm are really low, then you can think about full agentic processes with a human out of the loop as well. And most processes might start from all human. They will incrementally improve and go via continuous learning and then go towards full autonomy. But just because you can have full autonomy doesn't mean that you will recommend full autonomy in a service, primarily based on what I've spoken about in the previous chat. And from our perspective, from Global Business Services, we've looked at patterns within our services, which will give the maximum efficiency and returns. And we are currently investing on three major patterns where we would like to integrate AI into our services. One is our business intelligence service. Can we reimagine a future where people don't have to build dashboards and reports, and can they start talking to their data? And then content creation and management. And since we offer quite a bit of services across AstraZeneca, can we create content in nice ways? I'll touch upon this a bit more later in the presentation. And then the last one is help desk and support. This is a common pattern. If you've used Copilot and many other tools out there in the market, the idea is, can I talk to my knowledge? And currently, many of these services are driven by humans, and we have some service KPIs that we've set as targets for ourselves. So if I basically touch upon go into a bit more detail into what my team does, as in like I spoke about process and analytics services within GBS, the top bit, which is the analytics service, is what I offer, and which includes visual analytics and business intelligence in the forms of dashboards, reports, and so on and so forth. And then decision intelligence, applied AI. So what I'm going to talk about is the service that I offer for the rest of the organization as well. And we have process insights and process automation, which are linked as well. They're not that different, but again, they've got different levels of detailed services underneath them. And our idea is to embed AI within our own services, drinking our own champagne, rather than just saying that we can offer services to our customers. We want to improve our services to the extent where we can deliver more for less. and we can get to insights faster and reduce cost per insight for AstraZeneca internally. And the strategic pillars of our transformation are around people, value, and capabilities. Of course, you don't do any transformation without people. And our idea is to build virtual workforces where we will be the last set of line managers or set of people who'll just manage a human workforce alone. We do intend on managing AI workforces, and specifically, we're trying to target the doers in our organization, and we're training more and more people in terms of capabilities in the human layer to be better decision makers. You'll see a bit more of that in the later part of the presentation. And that's what I was recommending. We will try to build virtual workforce while the human layers have their own skills and capabilities. And we do consistently invest on both layers, not just the AI layer. When AI is improving, we also invest quite a bit on the human layer of like what decision-making skills and what capabilities and depth do they need to be able to do their roles much better. And we wouldn't be here without trying to deliver some value for the organization, right? We want to deliver more than 50% returns in terms of investments within AstraZeneca while we're all delivering our services internally. I give you a bit of an overview of like what services I offer. So this is a bit more detail, but without going into all of the information on the slide, visual analytics and business intelligence is talking about your past. So we answer simple questions in terms of dashboards and reports as outcomes. Questions like what happened? Why did it happen? These help our decision makers to make data-driven decisions about the future. And decision intelligence as a service that I offer is basically to build virtual workforces within services and to basically answer questions like what is likely to happen in the future, predictive, or what's the best course of action I could take, which is prescriptive. And the last one is when we can't do many of these services within the low code, no code applications as well, we try to go into, and when the user experiences are a lot more complex, we try to build them in full stack applications, but it's still real-time analytics applications and so on and so forth via analytics portals. Again, I'm not talking about AI so far for good reason because I'm setting the stage. It's coming. Uh, as of today, my human team basically has estimations on problem statements and they deliver the assets within the business intelligence service. And this currently takes for a small sized project, 10 to 25 person days, medium sized projects, and large in Excel. And there are some complexity drivers based on which we basically figure out what kind of a project or what kind of a solution it could be. This is the as is state, fully human with loads of process optimizations and automations from the technology sector already being there. Now, this is where we're trying to intervene with AI to see if we can reduce the time to insights and cost per insight. And we have a process for this. We don't throw technology directly at it. We firstly try to map our existing processes as a be it our customers or our own value chain. We try to map it. And then we've got technology in our other services in process insights and process automation, where we try to do task mining and process mining to create some kind of digital twins of the process so that we can view and monitor the process. Wherever there are rate limiters within the process, that's where we find transformation opportunities and deliver analytics and decision intelligence or intelligent automation as embedded products within that service or process. And then we try to track if the outcomes are happening on the other side and so on and so forth. So it should be measurability, all about measurability, not shooting in the dark. So we do try to do most of these decisions in terms of transformation itself from a process perspective in a data-driven way. And now when I dive deeper into that visual intelligence service, we've mapped our end-to-end value chain. So this is where it starts getting interesting because these are parts of the puzzle that humans are doing. So when it comes to a new customer coming to us, we have to do requirements gathering to understand their problems. What are we trying to solve? and so on and so forth. And it goes through various phases after that in terms of development, delivery, productionization, and so on and so forth. But left to right, we have experts who are humans who are doing this as in like multiple different kinds of profiles. Example is the requirements gathering is done by business analysts, process analysts, and so on and so forth in our own team. They talk to customers. All of them might be talking in different language with different levels of depth and experience. But you need some kind of common language when it has to go through the rest of the value chain. And this value chain gives us ideas in terms of what kind of agents or AI assistants we can build. I won't touch upon every one of these, but I'll go into one of the key ones, which is requirements gathering alone as a sub process. And as you can see, we've talked process first and then technology next. This is our sub process. As of today, business analysts go on a call with our customers, and you might have all used Microsoft Copilot and so on and so forth, which can also already do transcribing. But we've built a layer on top of that, which is a transcription with context. Now, that's a requirement, right? As in, like, you do need to summarize first before you can start writing out some assets and outcomes out of that itself, which is problem statements, pain points, business process map, user stories, and acceptance criteria, and with the design as well. In every one of these, we've not gone with a full bang of like one AI doing everything. We've built assistants at different stages with clear outcomes with the human in the loop as well, where we clearly call out who's basically framing and approving, and who's basically the eventual stakeholder who's going to approve the outcomes, and so on and so forth. And we start building a knowledge graph of all these problem statements as well, so that we can go and see if there are similarities and so on and so forth for any new problem statements that are coming in. Now we talk about the tool. So all of this was the build up towards how did we solve this? Given that we had already done some research on the problem statements and so on and so forth, and how we do in our value chain in its as a state, we wanted to drink our own champagne as an next. So can we build a tool with the problem statement being clear, and every one of us had a different language in which we were summarizing things? And this tool basically takes in the language, summarizes it in a common language format, which we've agreed, and then we go towards framing business problems, user stories, and then also enabling in future the similarities across different problem statements and stuff. And I thought I'll give a brief demo of that, with this being the problem statement. As in, like, if I had to build that tool, how would that look like? The business narrative, I gave a narrative around process and analytics services having to do this day in and day out via a call. You can upload a Teams call and so on and so forth. And it summarizes as context, key issues, pain points, like any other business problem that comes towards us. And then it summarizes. And you can see the left side is a very much a business-centric language, which is it highlights who's the user. In this case, it's process and analytics services. What's the problem that they face, which is inefficiencies in manual requirements gathering, unpredictability in outcomes, and then which might lead to poor customer satisfaction scores and so on and so forth. And then what are the things that are blocking them then from doing what they're doing? Now, imagine this one-liner, even though it looks simple, there are 60 business analysts in our team. And if I scale up across organizations, there are business partners and so on. And so we're talking about hundreds of people talking a language. And if we get this step wrong, the rest of the solutioning gets very, very haywire. So this is AI drafting in a common language, which means I'm transforming the way my whole organization talks in terms of language. It will always be common. And then the right side is my technical team basically writing an analytical problem statement, which is a solution where they're basically trying to imagine a world with some hypotheses and constraints and so on and so forth on what we could build. And both of this gets reviewed, updated with humans in the loop. When this gets finalized, if this is incremental content generation, then we go into process map generation. Now, from the context that I've given, this is a fully AI generated process map of what our current process is and what the tool needs to do. As in, like, this is basically a user journey in simple ways. It's in a sequence diagram format. And we've evaluated how correct it is, comparing it to what I documented previously. And it's like for like 90% of the times as of today in terms of our optimizations. And in complex processes, we have lesser accuracies, but for simple processes, we know our accuracies because we've tested it against some previous user journeys and process maps that we've generated. And we also generate this in an enterprise format, which is big, which is our system of choice, where we maintain all of our processes, and we can generate assets after that as well, processes, process maps, SOPs, and so on and so forth as well. The biggest savings comes from not reinventing the wheel. So if I've already delivered, my team's already delivered in the last 2 years around 600 odd dashboards across different areas and so on and so forth. I don't want to be reinventing the wheel for our organization. And if I can find something that's already there, that makes my life easier than trying to redo the same thing again. And this is our similarity search. In the current state, you can do it in existing solutions and for who's talking about the same problem from a different part of my own team. And this is an example of us doing similarity search across the business problems alone and the analytical approach. And I found my AI lead is already talking about a similar problem that I've basically generated. And he's going beyond what I've thought about. He's going talking about building compliance documentations from requirements and so on and so forth. So instead of doing this as two separate pieces of work, now this can be merged and can be solved. And this is just a road mapping discussion at this point. Else, you're just trying to build the same base benchmark work that needs to happen first before the rest of the pipeline needs to go on. And this kind of gives you in terms of dollar savings as well. If you remember the slide around every piece of the puzzle has its own cost and complexity and so on and so forth, not redoing the work saves quite a bit of money for the organization. And once you've gotten process maps, problem statements, you do need to tell your customers how you're going to deliver, what's the breakdown, and so on and so forth. In the same example of building this tool, the AI ways of working tool, it's generated some milestones, and it's written in a format of my choice. It needs to follow the Moscow format, must, could, should, so that the roadmap is visible for the users to validate. It writes the description of all of these tickets in a user story format. So you can say who's the user, what do they want to achieve, what's the so what, why would they need it, what's the value. And then it also writes acceptance criteria in a behavioral driven format. So given what's the assumption, when you implement the tool, then what should happen in as much of a breakdown, which means in our value chain, when we deliver the tool, this acceptance criteria is how we do the demos back to the customer. So they can say, okay, that works. And you go on and say whether you say that the product's ready or that milestone's been delivered or not. And you can see incrementally, all the requirements are written in the same format for the problem statement generation, user story generation, process map generation. What you saw as outputs is what this is showing as the inputs in terms of milestones and so on and so forth, but there's clarity. Whether I write this or someone else in my team writes it or across organizations writes it, it will be in the same format. So we are all talking the same language. And from a change management perspective, it's a lot more easier when we start with a good base. And it's one thing to build these tools. The other thing is from January this year, we've opened it up more and more to our teams to start piloting this. And we've seen around 170 odd unique users who've come in and used this, but we're seeing some repetitive users. And this is where it's at the start of the value chain, where we know that there's certain level of automation that's being delivered to these repeat users. And we've gotten a graph of around 600 odd problem statements, which we wouldn't have had this kind of visibility where we can do similarity estimations. And incrementally, with every feature, we're seeing adoption improvements. And this is a proxy that for delivering value, but we've also measured value in a perception-based way as a next. So there are two ways to measure value. If you've seen the markets, different AI products, when they're coming in, they do need to evaluate whether they can change something within a human-led process. We've reviewed, and currently we have estimations based on human perceptions alone that we've saved 77%, we're 77% more efficient in delivering project milestones, business problems generation, and our iterations with our customers have reduced from 7 to 8 times to 2 to 3 times. And this is a massive leap in the right direction, but we're not stopping over there. We've set up a measurability within Jira as well. So we know when we're discussing with customers how much time it takes as of today. And then we're also doing some A/B testing with and without the AI tool to do some time and motion analysis of like what it takes to does the perception turn to reality in terms of are we doing things faster? Can we take on more demand with the same set of people, give more opportunities for different profiles within our team? And then eventually take it forwards to the rest of the value chain as well. All of these are happening parallelly. We are trying to build more of these AI assistants and agents beyond requirements gathering through the whole service. We've currently trialing data preparation and modeling agents, dashboard development. We're basically trying to remove that from this value chain as much as possible and letting people talk to their data first. And only when there are repetitive conversations around the same topic, we build dashboards. And then testing and deployment and all of the costs around it are savings if we can handle most of the things within the data preparation and modeling and having a conversational agent in front. So this is still work in progress. And with our academic colleagues, most of what we are trying to work with is basically design of experiments in this space to make sure that we can calculate benefits and measure processes when AI comes in so that we can make the right calls. If it's not working according to our expectations, improve it based on the feedback loop set up within the process itself so that AI is going in the direction of learning more from the humans. That's everything from me. Thank you very much for listening. Happy to answer any questions.